Okay, I think we're good.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our October meeting. We're going to be going over themes and responsive design a little bit more generally and how it relates to OpenScholar. I'm Kate. This is Joe. We're the co-chairs of ABCD OpenScholar. We're a monthly informal group. We have name tags, as most of you have seen. We're going to be recording this. Wanted to let you know that, and we'll be posting the screen share and the slides up on the ABCD OpenScholar website later today, so you'll be able to grab links and go over the content again if you so desire.
Recording the audio.
Yes, the audio and the screen share. We're not recording all of you. We're going to be presenting for the first 45 minutes or so, and the end will be open help. If you brought your laptops, we can sit with you for about 15 minutes or so. So yeah, pretty much the same as always. Just to go over the other ways you can get help today, we obviously have this monthly meeting, as well as community, where you can post bugs, questions, feature requests. It's the best way to interact with our development team. We have our documentation site as well, which is always there for you. First line of questions, our defense and answering any questions you may have. We have a roadmap, what's scheduled to be in our upcoming release. That's the latest and greatest as far as what's coming out for OpenScholar. And then we still have our platform trainings every couple of weeks. So those are how you get help. So to start out, we're going to be talking about what themes do more generally with OpenScholar. So themes provide consistent visual presentation for your site. So HTML is the structure of your site. CSS is things like fonts, color palettes, borders, spacing between elements, margins and paddings, that sort of thing. Anything that prettifies your site. CSS is the language that does that. Okay, so thereby our themes are responsible for affecting the color palettes and things like that. So to select a theme is pretty straightforward. You go to the control panel. Under Appearance, Themes, you'll see all of our themes laid out for you there. You select a theme and you get that little green border giving you some feedback that that's the one that you've selected. And you can just hit Save at the bottom, and then should be good. You can click the Home button, see the different effect that your home page and your other pages have on your site as well. It doesn't affect your content, so you can change your theme later on. We'll discuss that in a second, but pretty straightforward. And we have 3 different types of themes. The one-pager themes are going to lay your content horizontally. We often call them bands. It's a very modern design. We have a whole documentation page on that. So if you want to read up on those, they might take a little bit of planning with the home page because certain widgets work better with the home page for that. Featured themes, good for larger sites. They're also responsive, mobile friendly. So those first 2 sites are themes, one-pagers, and featured themes. Those are the ones that you're pretty much going to want to stick with. Those are the responsive ones. We still have a few other themes, which some people really are attached to the design of those. You can still access those on your mobile phones. You're just going to have to do the pinchy things with your fingers, so kind of at this point where a lot of people don't tolerate that as well, but they will be able to access the site. For the most part, we want to stick with our responsive themes. And this is an example of the Crimson theme, different views that it's in. So the first one is a laptop view at about 1440 pixels wide. And as you can see, if you close the browser width, the middle one is about what a tablet view would be horizontally, 768 pixels wide. And then we have what you'd see in a mobile view if you scroll down a little bit of ways. And then as you can see, as we're closing the width, certain columns are collapsing. The menus are collapsing into a hamburger menu as well. That little 3-line thing over there, and then the secondary menu is that plus sign as well. So Joe will talk about that more in a little bit, but just know that one-pagers, featured themes, as you shrink the width, they're designed to display all that content based on your device. And as I mentioned before, you are free to change the themes at any time. It is designed to only affect your content, or to not affect your content, only how it looks, the colors and everything. If you are changing between a one-pager and a featured theme, just pay attention to the home page, because the regions of the layout for that, which Joe will talk about again in a little bit, they're a little bit different, so it could cause some wonkiness in your widgets, or you might have to re-add some widgets to your home page. But otherwise, if you're switching between different featured themes, should be all set. It won't affect your content. Customizing themes, a lot of people ask about this, and we have the instructions in the documentation. I'll briefly kind of go over the steps here, with one caveat that we don't support this unless you do a consulting package with us. We can implement a custom theme, but OpenScholar does allow for this, so we'll briefly show you the steps to do it. Essentially, you need to find the code that you're going to use, so the CSS, to override one of the out-of-the-box themes, and then you throw it in an embed media widget. Okay, and then you layer over some embedded CSS styles. We have, again, the full list of how to do this, or the directions, as well as our terms of use, mainly being that we don't support this. Otherwise, we would get lots of little questions about, can you change the CSS code for me, things like that. But typically what we do is we use the inspector tools in Chrome and Firefox. So if you want to change the color of something, like in this case, a header, you can right-click by inspecting that element. So in this case, we have an H3, and you can see the associated HTML with it, as well as the CSS. But again, you have to be comfortable knowing what you're doing with CSS, because you're venturing kind of out into this on your own for the most part. But you find what you want to change, and you can edit the styles there. You figure out what code you want to add to change the CSS or to layer on top of the overall theme. Step 2 is creating the embed media widget. So just like any other widget, you go to the layout, click add new widget, and then you choose the embed media widget, and then you go over to the embed from web tab when you're adding a new file, and then you throw in your CSS. But keep in mind it has to be wrapped in the style tag, because you're inserting HTML in there. So style tag wrapped around your CSS, you submit it and save it, and that's pretty much what we do to layer on the styles. And the last step is adding it to your layout. So you'd go into the all sections layout and then put it somewhere, generally in the footer. And then hopefully you will have your desired result. So if you were changing this to red in that instance, okay? And so here are some custom themes that we've done, and obviously these are, you'd want us to help you implement these, so they're a little out there. But that's really what we do, is we use the embed media widget to layer on an existing OpenScholar theme. So this community website is one that we just released a couple of days ago. And if you go over to one of the landing pages here, I have this Chrome extension called Web Developer that you can see. Here's the custom theme that we've implemented. We have kind of these card-like features and a blue footer catered to the design and the brand of this particular group. And if I disable the embedded styles, here you can really see it's just layered upon one of the default OpenScholar themes. Okay, so we're not creating a whole new theme in the sense that we have a folder structure with separate CSS files and JavaScript. We're layering on styles. And you can do that too for smaller changes as well if you want to venture into that route. And you can see in the layout here, they have a styles widget in the footer. Wrapped in the style tag, this is all the CSS for this particular custom theme. So that's how HWP does it as far as custom theming.
Can I answer this question?
Yeah.
To the custom CSS stuff later? So I totally get the part about like it's not supported, and if you want it on your site, you need to do it yourself and so forth. But
or you can come to us as well for consulting stuff.
Yeah,
as well.
But is there any kind of like general policy or statement or anything about HWPs? You know, the potential for changing things to the platform that could then have follow-on effects to what one creates for one's own site. I'm talking about like I've written some custom CSS that is applied to class names that are given to me by the platform.
Yep.
Now, if HWP changed like the nomenclature or whatever for how those class names are written, that would break my custom CSS. I would rather have know something like that was going to happen as opposed to it simply happening and then discovering it because things on my site looks broken. But I don't know if there's any kind of position, from OpenScholar about like things that may or may not change without notice.
Okay, that's a good question. If you want to speak to that.
The default class names are going to change until OpenScholar moves to the next version of Drupal, which is what is the underlying platform.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect it to be like a monthly occurrence, but like it could happen. There would be good reasons for it to happen.
Yeah. But there is.
I was just going to say, if there's a possibility for select big users, HDS, to test bigger things that are going to come out before they come out, so we can do some QA. That's like a preemptive thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I think most sites that have been built by HWP use we use our own class names that are not generated by OpenScholar, so we control what they are. So I think that transition to Drupal 8 is going to be a lot smoother than using the class names generated by OpenScholar.
But there are elements that are part of the page where one does not have the ability to add class names.
That's true.
And yet, you might want to change how it looks. So
Yeah. But I don't think that's going to be an issue for a while. Definitely people are going to run into trouble with that. Those kind of core class names change.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm putting it out there as like, when the time comes, it would be helpful to know
To have that communicated out. Yes.
when it's going to happen before it's actually implemented.
I would say as a best practice, I wouldn't recommend doing it that way. There's probably a better way to do it by controlling your own class names. And we can talk, I can show you how to do that.
Yeah, we can go into that a little bit more as well.
And my comment was more not specific about class names, just any big change that might need to be done.
Yeah.
We'd be happy to be able to give and take for
Sorry. Yes, good feedback. So you're talking basically more about releases and the process for doing health checks in advance of it in production. Is that?
Yep. It's a good general piece of feedback, I'd say. Yep.
So just a couple questions about inline styles and those themes. For instance, the theme that you're showing, I was just intrigued by that because it's a sort of banded theme, but it's a multi-page banded theme.
Yep.
And I just ran into that problem. And is that a problem that you're solving with inline CSS to so I couldn't get the follow-on pages, in a banded style?
You mean anything besides the home page? Yeah. Right now, the only out-of-the-box themes that we have are ones where the home page is set up that way, and then the other pages are not.
So this example,
this is a custom theme that we've implemented. Yeah.
Right. So you're not, right, so that was my other.
Right.
I was just like, wait a second. The
Yeah.
other part of my question was like, what is your dividing line between what sort of stuff you're solving with, inline style, embedded inline styling, versus changing the template, changing the template. Is there, you sort of have a category, so that's one of them. You're not changing, follow-on pages and stuff like that.
Well, we've certainly done that in this case where we've done styles that affect the whole site.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks consistent across the site. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble understanding your question.
No, that's okay. Actually, since you're not doing it that way, you're not doing it with inline styles, right? Then I don't really have a question. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, inline meaning, I would think of inline would be in
inline
the,
CSS, right?
Yeah, it's not-
You're not right.
I wouldn't use inline CSS like in the WYSIWYG if you go to the source.
No,
Yeah,
I meant an inline meaning
embedded in an embed media widget. We are using that for this, but it's propagated throughout the whole site because we put it in the layout over or under the all sections, so it's on every page. So therefore, it's propagated to every page on your site. So in this particular case, we have the bands for each landing page, and then the secondary pages look a little bit different, and we have certain classes that we use to target those particular pages.
So you're just doing that all with media embeds?
Yep. Exactly.
The other question that came up recently was in the community site on the speed issues. The first thing that they say is using style, using media embed styles is a culprit for slowing the sites. But I guess you guys don't feel that way, right? If you're doing it.
I don't notice it. I don't really notice.
It isn't because all the pages served up to the public are from a cache server, so it doesn't really take a lot for the page to load.
And CSS is going to be cached with the rest of the page.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just funny that's like I just happened to look at that yesterday. That's why I mentioned
Oh,
it's just funny because
Like an older thread or something.
It's just I don't even remember. I was just browsing through some stuff and that was the first thing they said is don't use inline CSS. So just saying.
No.
There's definitely a combination of CSS from the underlying theme, but in this case, I think it won't cause any problems with performance. We haven't seen it.
Already did that. That was my laptop.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Okay, great. Okay, so we're going to take a look at the theme regions a little bit. So when you go into your site settings and look at the control panel, you have an option right here called Layout. And it tells you which section you're in. And as many of you know who've used OpenScholar, this is sort of a blueprint of your site's layout. And these are the various widgets inside the site layout. Now, this is just an example site, but we call these areas regions. So this is the primary menu region. These three blocks are the header region. This is the top. This is the first, the second, as it goes down. So when you choose an OpenScholar theme, at least with the one-page theme, some of these regions will have preset styles. For example, this Red Sox roster widget is in the second region down, and this is automatically will have a gray background. So depending on where you drop widgets in, they may have different styles according to the region. And you saw the community site, it had a banded approach. We styled the different regions to have a different look, and that's how you got the different color bands. So just something to be mindful of. And it kind of shows you right here the different regions and the backgrounds. One thing the one-page themes will do is it has this effect with lists of posts where it'll create a nice grid effect. If you have a list of posts on the regular themes, it'll be a vertical list. But the one-page themes on the home page, it creates automatically creates this nice grid, and it'll adjust it to how many you have, and it'll kind of smartly make decisions on whether to put 2 or 4 based on your content. That's one feature a lot of people don't know about the one-page theme. So the one-page theme refers to really just the home page. It's more banded, and as you alluded to, Liz, the interior pages are the traditional page where they don't have the bands. They have a fixed width, and they have a traditional look about them, as opposed to the banded. Now, out of the box, there was a decision made quite a long time ago to use Google fonts. Google fonts are pretty sleek and very visually appealing, easy to read, easy to scan. So most of our out-of-the-box themes use Google fonts. And later there's a slide that shows you if you wanted to use Google fonts on a particular site. You can do that as well. Open this slide just in case we get there. Does everybody know about Google fonts? They're just a free repository of fonts that you can use, and basically you make a reference to them on your website in the top region of the HTML, and it basically downloads the fonts, and whatever fonts you have there by default, it'll change it to the Google fonts. They're pretty nice. So you can go there and browse through all the different fonts. Like this is a common one that we use in some of our themes, and it's pretty cool. So again, this is not something supported, but we thought we'd mention it because this is something that you can do. There's a few different ways you can add Google fonts to your site. You can embed using the @import method, or you can use the JavaScript method. They both would go inside of an embed media widget on your site. The reason why the JavaScript method is better is that it will be more instantaneous. We found that with the @import method, what will happen is you'll see the page load, and then it'll be a second delay, and then the Google fonts will come in and replace the default fonts, and that's not a very user-friendly effect to have. It's a little bit jarring. So we find that using the JavaScript version works a little better. Now it's a little gory because I can explain what this is. Basically, you're setting the fonts that you want. So we want open sans, and these are the different font weights and styles that we're going to download. Lato, Oswald, Montserrat are all common fonts. And this will change depending on what fonts you want, and then this piece is just copy and paste, and that puts the fonts on your site.
All of this is stuff that like the Google font site will just present to you that you can basically just copy and paste the whole thing at once. It's not like you have to compose a list of font names and font weights by hand.
Yes, right? That's absolutely correct. And if you just go by default, if you go to the @import, it generates this. This is the @import, but you're right. It'll generate this for you. Don't use this. Use the JavaScript. But we can talk about that after. But it will generate this code, so you don't have to go in and kind of slice and dice inside that JavaScript code. So that's always nice.
And you insert it into the not changing our font, but you insert it into the header region.
Yeah. So
do that in the installer.
let's look at an example.
But it's not the head.
No,
It's
right.
not,
Yeah.
Right.
Had
But I
read.
thought we had to insert any additional scripts to the footer.
I do, and actually generally JavaScript is recommended to put something at the bottom of the page rather than the top. But
Yeah, and I know that works, and if the instructions, I did it because that's what I thought, because on an option, but the instructions were put in header.
Yeah. So the community site, here's where the Google Fonts widget is. And this is to avoid a little bit of latency for when it loads. So we like to put it near one of these three top regions. And as you can see, it's, you can see this is exactly the fonts that they're using. And it's the same exact code. And they just put it in the header region. So that's the first piece. That's downloading the fonts. And then with their CSS, they're saying, all of the paragraph text we want, Montserrat or Lato. They're using CSS in addition to declare what font their heading should look like. So it's a two-part: downloading the font and adding CSS. And that CSS again is what they use is down in their styles widget in here. So we're not really going to get into a tutorial about how to do it. We're just going to just wanted to share with you that this is kind of an insight on how the fonts are added.
Can I just say too, it's a little ironic, right, that we're sitting here saying like, this is how you can do all this stuff, but nobody should do any of this stuff because we're not going to support anybody who does any of this stuff. It's a little bit awkward. We want to show you the power and kind of like what can happen in the system, and for those of you who want to take on that kind of responsibility and are able to maintain it over time when things change, because invariably they change over time, and you know what to kind of do to fix things. We want you to kind of know that the option is there. So we're trying to toe a fine line between like being open about what the possibilities are, but then also making sure that we're just clearly kind of drawing the responsibilities.
Yeah, well said.
Acknowledging that.
Yeah, so now we're going to revert back to sort of what we were talking about initially, the themes and the responsive elements to them. And also, we're going to talk about the themes color palettes. So all of these themes have been created. These are the out of the box themes. They've been created within the Harvard Guidelines color palettes, and those can be found on the Guidelines website here. So everybody know about this site, guidelines.hwp.harvard.edu. These are the different color palettes that comply with the Harvard branding guidelines. So all of these themes are using these colors. Now it's a little limited. That's why maybe some of the out-of-the-box themes look, they look good, but they might look a little generic. We're limited to these color palettes. And there's actually very few deviations from these colors in this list of themes. Here we go. Pretty much all the same. I bet we can even find that yellow in here. The lemon. Yep, there it is. This is the same lemon sand. So that's where these colors come from. All right, so additional elements for Harvard branding, there's school shields. Now, we don't provide these by default, but you'll find these on the footer. These are also on the Harvard HWP Guidelines website. You can download your shield. The Harvard signature and signature extension, which is the way Harvard font is written, uses two proprietary fonts, Anziano Pro and Benton Sans. You can create these for your website. You probably don't have access to these fonts, but you can email HPAC and they can provide those with you. You'll see many of the sites we do have that signature on the bottom.
So is it just like a total no-go to like make those fonts available, like built into OpenScholar? So that like when you're using a composer or something, you could pick one of those fonts?
Yeah, it is because
That would be, I mean, I know that,
Yeah.
like, obviously Harvard is licensing the fonts, and that's sort of being managed through, like, contact HVAC or whatever, and, you know, you can get the font, because then you're identifying yourself as a Harvard person.
Yeah.
But could there additionally be licensing such that OpenScholar could make it, you know, selectable from a drop-down of fonts?
I don't know about that first. I would think the much simpler path would be, let's get HVAC to rethink what those fonts are in the first place and use like Google Fonts or something that we could tap into an API to draw the fonts in or something like that.
Well, I mean, that seems like the harder arguments to make, honestly. So, like, because like, as much as I'm a fan of telling people to stop wanting what they want, like, this seems like giving people what they want, but still.
Yeah, so for right now, I mean, that's a very fair point. Right now, you can email identity guidelines at harvard.edu, and they'll send you the fonts if you want to do that for your website.
I don't even like the fonts very much. Like, I don't think, I'm not advocating for seeing more things in these fonts on sites, but, you know, that's what we'll take.
Yes. So OpenScholar strives to provide all of the sites on the platform that comply with AA accessibility standards. So people that, if you've heard of accessibility guidelines, they're a set of rules that ensure that people with disabilities can access all the content on the site. There's the World W3 Consortium accessibility guidelines link here, and there's some tools that we often use to check on contrast. So for example, if we had like a standard gray on a white background, that would fail. But if we had more of a darker gray, oops, let's see, 444, there we go. So that would pass. So that provides enough contrast if you have a font on sort of a dark gray font on a white background to pass the AA standard. So a person with a vision impairment would better be able to see the text on the page. So there are tools like that we use. This isn't really theme related, but I thought I'd throw this in there that OpenScholar and Drupal, which is the underlying engine behind OpenScholar, generate some things in the HTML code that help people, in this case, somebody with who's vision impaired, understand a page that has a bunch of these read more links, and there might not be a lot of description to differentiate between all of the read more links and where they go. So OpenScholar puts this in sort of invisible description underneath this read more link, so a screen reader would be able to narrate back what the link is about. So it does a lot of things like that.
Should site improve pick up on that? Because we recently were looking at an accessibility report, and it flagged all the read more. And
Was that change? Was it not flagging them before and it started flagging them?
I don't know. I haven't looked at that.
Then, I mean, like OpenScholar's been doing this for a while,
Yeah.
and like I think I consider this doing the right thing
Uh-huh.
to make them differentiable.
Yeah.
It's quite possible that some scanning tool, like Site Group, might be the error will be on Site Group's part, not
Right.
on the Scholar's part.
Oh, you know what? I take it back. It wasn't the reading one. It was another one that we were using.
Okay. Like if you're composing a link and you say like,
Yeah.
oh, well, for more information about this, click here, and the link is on over here, that's probably not going to be, that's something that it could very well pick out and say like, this is going to be hard for people to know.
No, it was watch video on this video.
Oh.
Yeah, so Site Improve is a good tool that identifies accessibility errors and warnings. I don't know if there's sometimes false positives. I assume that there are at times. Okay, and I think we went over this, but just a little overview about responsive design. So basically, it's an approach to make the visual elements on the page adjust to various widths. And those widths correspond to various devices that people are using: iPad, iPhone, Samsung phones. They all have different widths. And a few years back, people used to create a separate site. If you can remember sites that were M dot something, they'd actually create a separate site. That's no longer the common approach or prevailing approach. It's responsive design, which is a whole separate set of CSS rules that use the width of the device to define a whole new set of layout options with the CSS. So I just wanted to give you some numbers here. 75% are desktop visitors. This is over the last 30 days. I dug into our global analytics a little bit. That means that 25% are visiting either mobile phone or tablet. So that's a pretty high number. I was actually surprised to see. And this is across all of 3 OpenScholar installations.
And that's actually a low number compared to like web traffic in the entire world, right? Where that's like 50-50 or something maybe between desktop and various kinds of mobile devices.
A lot of that is driven by people using their people like me using my laptop to go to PeopleSoft and the financial applications and things like that, right?
Right. Well, those wouldn't be counted here because that's a PeopleSoft isn't on OpenScholar. This is
no, right, but using Harvard to get to PeopleSoft in the first place. Right?
Oh, right. Now they actually have PeopleSoft at Harvard.edu as a domain name. I don't do that as much.
I didn't know that was the case.
Yeah.
Learn something every day.
I think it's kind of a mistake on their part, right? Because they used to use like Harvard and then HR.Harvard as like it's an opportunity to show you some stuff that we think you should know while you're on the way to doing this obligatory activity. But then they made it really easy to see that.
And finance at Harvard, and there's a lot of kind of like administrative type websites here at Harvard that get a ton of traffic that account for this, which I think is why it's really different than what we find in the private sector.
But that's really a good point. Yeah.
So anyhow, I recall doing this maybe a year ago, and it was like around 10. So it's increased. It's just from my memory. Don't quote me on it, but I was surprised. It's a little higher than what it was last year. So some typical devices, a lot of iPhones and iPads. Some of these numbers are redundant. iPhone 6, but these are the main devices that are hitting OpenScholar websites in the last 30 days. So as I said, we have a certain set of CSS rules that apply to different widths or maximum widths. Some common widths that we saw for are 768, iPad portrait, iPad landscape, iPhone 6 portrait, Samsung Galaxy. So we just try to take the most common formats and widths for the devices hitting the platform. I'm just going to go quickly into the responsive testing. So one of the things that we often do, as Kate showed you earlier, when we're on a site, we can use the Chrome tools. And the Chrome tools, let me just evoke this real quick, will allow you to view it in mobile format. So you can choose a different device and see what it looks like to ensure that it looks correct. iPhone 6. As you can see that what the responsive design does is it stacks the elements. You have the hamburger menu, which is your primary menu here. And it works for nested drop downs. Other tools, Responsinator, which is you put in a URL and it just shows you on every device. Browser stack, I'll quickly show you that. So basically, browser stack, you can check responsive, but you can also check all the different browsers and versions as well as different devices. So we use that to cross-browser test any of the themes that go out. And then some of our themes, especially our custom themes, might have newer CSS in it. So there's a site, Can I Use, that will tell you which browsers will support it. So we just built a site that uses CSS Grid, and basically it's a way to make a grid without a table with CSS. But as you can see, if I use this tool, it'll tell me that anybody with Safari 10.2, it's not going to work. So it's going to look broken. And Chrome, an older version of Chrome, it's not going to work. So this is a useful tool that tells us which browsers are going to support it. Now we do use CSS Grid now because mostly all the current browsers will mostly all support it. So
One was broken. It was really broken.
yeah. If it doesn't support it, it looks pretty horrendous. So that's it. That's just more of an overview. Does anybody have any questions or yeah?
You mentioned in the documentation there are instructions to customize the basic piece. Can we add, is the band thing part of the instructions? Is it one of the examples? Bring a band out on website?
Yeah, so the band would not be included. Did we get interior pages with bands? Yeah, that wouldn't be included in that. It just shows some simple examples.
Like changing colors?
Yeah, and fonts. Yeah.
The thing you mentioned was the one-page layout that expanded. So you can use that, and that's I still have all my other inside pages.
Yeah, those would look just like the featured theme. So the front page and home page would be the bands that we mentioned earlier. And you should definitely look at the documentation for that specific theme. Like a slideshow widget works well for that. For instance, that's going to take up the full width and look nice.
So I can convert a basic website to the one page and then
Yeah,
fix it.
You just want to be careful if it's a featured theme and you choose the one-page theme, then the home page and your widgets might, I don't know how they're going to look exactly.
But
So you should plan for that and maybe do it off hours or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can do that. It will just only affect the front page. And we don't have instructions for how to do things in CSS. I mean, you can Google that stuff or look on Lynda for a CSS tutorial or something like that to do some basic things. But we just tell you how to add your custom CSS to an OpenScholar site.
Yeah, I can send you this URL if you want. This basically just shows you how to, and then you can add your own styles after that.
Yeah, I've never done it, so I don't know the details, but I like the band logos.
Yeah, check out the one-page theme.
Yeah, that'll at least give you the homepage, the banded list.
Just wanted to get an idea about sort of what the philosophy is or the planning or whatever on, future releases of public themes. So just using this banded theme, for example, it's great to have a one-page band. It looks great. It's really nice.
Yeah.
But is there like sort of, like a plan like every 3 months or every year, or, you know what I mean? Like you release a new theme or you'll improve a theme like that. And I just mean not so much the roadmap and what's on the roadmap, but just a sense of, how often our themes, like in your imagination, would change or be available. Is there a concept about that?
Yeah.
Philosophy or anything, or no?
So I think two different thoughts on mine. One is thinking kind of in hindsight of the last like 3 or 4 years and like how many themes are in the gallery now as compared to what it looked like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and then trying to kind of like